Hello and welcome to Focus on Africa. I am Peter Okwoche. Our top stories. As the UN issues dire warnings over impending drought in the Horn of Africa, we speak to an environmental ambassador on how much time is running out to save vulnerable communities. Developing countries are suffering the most from the effects of climate change. That's despite contributing the least to it. The World Food Programme has warned that drought in the Horn of Africa could drive some 20 million people into hunger by the end of this year. BBC Africa business reporter Joel Kiruyungi has been speaking to Sabrina Dhowre Elba, the International Fund for Agricultural Development's Goodwill Ambassador, who's been to Somalia and Northern Kenya recently to assess the impact of the famine on communities there.
It was really unfortunate that on my recent visits to Somalia and even Kenya, everything we've been hearing about in terms of the drought, the famine, it's all true. The people there are really suffering the effects of climate change, and it's disastrous for their communities. I mean, when you talk about agriculture as a means to support yourself, which is what I do in my work, if you're worried about going hungry, you're going to sell your livestock, you're going to sell, your house, your motorbike, whatever you can to just be able to feed yourself. But what's most frustrating probably is that I know the solutions are out there. So knowing that they exist and not seeing them implemented on the ground is devastating. I think it's time for people to really step up. The drought, the famine in Somalia particularly isn't getting as much attention as it did in 2016. Obviously there's a lot going on in the world, but these are still human beings. We need to be more of an international community. I hope that COVID has taught us at least that.
Do you think there's enough goodwill from wealthy nations to support climate change initiatives on the continent?
I think there is progress in the right direction. We were just at COP recently in Glasgow, myself and my husband, and we saw the conversation for climate financing change from being a binary solution between adaptation and mitigation to becoming one solution together. And that's really important for the continent because it means that they can grow jobs and people can survive and grow food. Climate change really is a conversation you cannot have without including rural people. They're the custodians of this planet. People need to see rural people as part of the climate change solution, and you will see that it gets there, hopefully.
And speaking about solutions, starting right from the grassroots, what lessons can governments learn in terms of implementing solutions that come from the grassroots level?
Listening to people, listening to the rural people. They really do know what's best. So that needs to be considered when implementing policies, when increasing funding, when providing funding at the very least, and I think governments are understanding that.
And what role can the private sector play in supporting young agricultural entrepreneurs in Africa?
I really hope, first of all, that young people start to see agriculture as a real business. It really is a great entrepreneurial venture. We saw recently on our visit that young people are actually going back. They're leaving Nairobi, I'm sorry, but they're going back because they've seen the success of their parents. Where I think the private enterprise comes in is, now that they're seeing those success, to maintain it, that's where they really need to start investing. Because as much as they do want to go back, the world is changing. We're seeing crises on crises on crises, and climate change being a big part of that.
And how can Africa's food systems be made resilient in the face of shocks such as famine, drought, that we've just discussed?
It's not just about short-term aid, it's about looking at ways to invest in people so that they can build a means to be resilient themselves. Things like climate resilient seeds, technology, tools, education, and that's where we're really going to see change.